I don't trust you, and I won't until you prove to me that you're serious about this. No games, no lies.
Maul smirked, his yellow eyes glittering in the dim light.
I assure you, Lady Tano, I am quite serious. You will see soon enough. However, we must prepare. The clock is ticking.
Ahsoka nodded, steeling herself for the road ahead. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. She couldn't afford to fail. Not with so much at stake.
I see that you are wearing the clothing provided to you by my loyal Mandalorians. You will find no finer cloth. Now, back to business, Lady Tano.
Maul walked around Ahsoka, observing her. Her stance, her attitude, the bags under her eyes.
First, you must understand, defeating Sidious requires more than just the Jedi teachings you have been accustomed to. It requires understanding the Sith mind and will. Two things you cannot learn from any mere Jedi.
The ways of the dark side? That wasn't part of our agreement. I thought I was only helping you to stop Sidious. I am not a Sith.
To understand the dark is not necessarily to use it, but unfortunately, your teaching as a Jedi pupil of Skywalker's is not enough to survive the war we will bring to Sidious. Now, as you have remained, I will give you a very simple first task.
And what would that be?
Release your apprehension, embrace feeling, and allow your mind to be free. You will go to Coruscant as my enforcer to see that a message is made clear.
Message?
A message of blood, to be exact. I want you to kill a man of insignificance, a debt collector by the name of Pintu Son-El, one who wrongs the inhabitants on his level.
Kill someone? I'm not a murderer, Maul.
Do not underestimate the task at hand, Lady Tano. It's not simply about taking a life, but understanding the power of the dark side. The emotion, the anger, the hate, all of it must be channeled properly to achieve our goals. Even your master Windu brushes with it regularly.
I understand that, Maul, but I won't let myself become consumed by it.
And that is precisely why I chose you for this task. You have a strong will and a pure heart, which will make it easier for you to balance the light and dark within you. Remember, we are not Jedi or Sith. We are something in between. Something stronger. If it puts you at ease, the Republic would likely give this particular man the death penalty if they ever caught him.
Ahsoka hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of the task Maul had given her, but she knew what was at stake, and she knew that she couldn't back down now. Ahsoka looked at him, then nodded.
Then you will need a weapon.
With a quick gesture, Maul summoned a box made from textured wood. Opening it, he revealed two identical lightsabers, both with curved blade shrouds and a grip not dissimilar to Anakin's, but that narrowed in the switch section.
These sabers used to be one, the saber staff of Savage Opress. My brother. Until you have the time to remake your own, you may use these. Go now, Lady Tano.
As Ahsoka Tano left Mandalore, her mind was filled with doubt and uncertainty. She had made the decision to work with Maul in order to stop Darth Sidious' plan, but the thought of delving into the dark side of the Force made her uneasy. Despite her reservation, she knew that this was the only way to save her friends and stop the impending doom that Sidious had planned. As her ship approached Coruscant, Ahsoka knew that she had to be cautious. Level 1313 was a dangerous place, filled with criminals and gangs, as she knew from experience. She had to remain stealthy and avoid drawing attention to herself. Ahsoka had learned various techniques during her time as a Jedi, and she planned to use them to her advantage. She deactivated the ship's engines, allowing it to glide silently into the docking bay. Ahsoka stepped off the ship, her senses on high alert. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes, using the Force to sense any potential danger. She felt the presence of several beings nearby, but none seemed to pose a threat. Ahsoka made her way through the dimly lit corridors. Her footsteps soft and silent, she kept to the shadows, avoiding any areas with too much light. She didn't want to draw attention to herself, and the darkness provided her with the perfect cover. As she approached a crowded area, Ahsoka slowed her pace. She knew that the key to being stealthy here was to blend in with the crowd. She adjusted her hood, making sure to keep her face hidden. She watched the movements of the beings around her, carefully avoiding any eye contact. A group of drunken thugs stumbled past her, their laughter echoing through the corridors. Ahsoka felt a sudden surge of fear, but she remained calm. She focused on her breathing, letting the fear flow through her and out the other side. The thugs didn't even notice her, and soon they were gone. Ahsoka finally reached the entrance to level 1313, and she could feel the tension in the air. This was a dangerous place, but she had a job to do. She took a deep breath and stepped through the entrance. The darkness of the level enveloped her, but Ahsoka was prepared. She pulled out her lightsabers, the blades glowing brightly in the darkness. She kept her movements fluid, moving quickly and silently through the shadows. She used the Force to sense any danger ahead, and she was able to avoid any potential threats. Ahsoka's heart pounded as she navigated the winding corridors of Coruscant's level 1313, her steps as silent as a shadow. The once bustling streets had been reduced to a labyrinthine maze, filled with debris and the remnants of a war-torn past. The desolate surroundings reminded her of the time she spent on the run, after being falsely accused of that crime she didn't commit. Memories of that harrowing experience flashed before her mind's eye, but she pushed them away, focusing on the task at hand. She had to find the debt collector, Pintu. As she approached the target's location, Ahsoka's grip tightened around her lightsabers. She had trained her entire life to be a Jedi, to uphold the principles of peace and justice, but now she was about to do the unthinkable for her. Take a life in cold blood. She followed her target, her eyes on him like a hawk. Pintu, a notorious debt collector, stood outside the rundown apartment building, flanked by his enforcers. He banged on the door, demanding payment from the occupants inside. The family huddled together, afraid to make a sound. Pintu had eyes and ears everywhere, and he knew they were inside. With a loud crash, the door finally gave way, and Pintu barged in, his enforcers close behind. Ahsoka jumped onto a platform and stood against the wall, hearing everything within through a window.
There's him! You're late on your payments!
Ahsoka huddled against the wall outside. She heard the father of the frightened family whimper before she heard the sound of bones cracking through the small room.
Please, we're just trying to get by.
That's not my problem. If you can't pay up, you'll face the consequences.
Ahsoka crouched in the shadows, her body tensed with a mixture of anger and fear. She watched helplessly as Pintu, the debt collector, had forced Desm's family to hand over their hard-earned credits, steeling her heart against him. As Pintu and his henchmen swaggered out of the apartment building, Ahsoka saw the bloodstains on the enforcer's wrists, and with a fierce determination she followed them like a shadow. Her eyes focused on her target. The debt collector eventually returned to his office at an abandoned warehouse. The tension in the air was palpable for her as Ahsoka crept towards the building. The sounds of her footsteps echoed against the walls as she tried to keep her breathing steady. Her senses were heightened, her awareness at its peak, as she anticipated any potential danger. Pintu laid back as his enforcers went on patrol, scouting around the building. Ahsoka stealthily made her way past them and approached his office. As she entered the room, her eyes locked onto the target, Pintu Sonel. The man looked up at her, a smug expression on his face.
Well, well, well. What do we have here?
Ahsoka remained silent, her gaze steady as she braced herself for what was to come. She knew that the man before her was no innocent victim. He was a ruthless criminal who had made his fortune preying on the vulnerable. Pintu leaned back in his chair, a death stick clamped between his teeth.
You don't look like one of my usual clients, honey. What brings you to my humble abode?
I'm here to deliver a message.
Pintu's eyes widened in surprise, and then narrowed with suspicion.
And what kind of message would that be?
The kind that can only be delivered in regret.
The debt collector let out a deep chuckle, puffing smoke into the air.
Is that so? Well, you'll have to try harder than that to intimidate me, sweetheart.
Unfortunately, I will.
With a sudden burst of movement, Ahsoka sprang into action. The room erupted in a flurry of blaster fire and lightsaber strikes. The former Jedi was momentarily distracted by the sight of the red blades in her possession, not fully processing it earlier. Pintu's bodyguards rushed in to defend their boss, but Ahsoka was too quick for them. Her movements were fluid and graceful, her blades flashing through the air like streaks of lightning, yet she still struggled slightly to use the oversized hilts of the saber belonging to Maul's brother, a veritable giant. Pintu himself proved to be a formidable opponent, his massive frame and brutish strength nearly overwhelming Ahsoka, but she was determined to see the mission through, to deliver the message that Maul had entrusted to her. With a quick, decisive strike, she brought the debt collector to his knees. Literally. He shrieked in pain as he held his cauterized wrist, watching his severed hand drop to the ground with a thud. He tried to look behind him to see the rest. Pintu finally realized the gravity of his situation. After years of oppressing others, he was now the one pleading for his life.
Please, don't kill me! I'll do anything!
Ahsoka said nothing. Looking down, she felt guilt. Perhaps she could just allow the Republic to take him away. She could show the authorities the embezzlements, the illegal actions, the corruption this man has brought to level 1313, a place harmed enough. Or she could continue to follow Maul's task to an end, no matter what that conclusion may be. In this instance, it meant the end of Pintu Sonel. The image of the terrified family handing over their credits to Pintu flashed through her mind. She locked eyes with the terrified debt collector, glaring at him.
You want money? I got plenty of it! Please!
Suddenly, with a sharp jerk, Ahsoka slashed, not giving herself any further time to think about her potential choices and actions. A brief moment of silence accompanied the attack, hanging heavily in the air before a large thud shattered the illusion of peace. As Ahsoka breathed in shakily, Pintu's severed head simply rolled away. The only testament to the act she had committed, outside of the massive blubber that now sat in front of her. Ahsoka stared down at the shocked expression on Pintu's face, feeling nothing. It was as though she were watching a hollow film of herself. Ahsoka felt distant, separated from her emotions. She could see in front of her, but everything in her peripherals was dark. She stooped to pick up the still warm head of her unfortunate target. Ahsoka straightened. She had taken a ruthless debt collector off of the streets. He deserved it, she told herself. He was the enemy here, not her. He was the one hurting people. She had saved them. Swallowing the wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her, Ahsoka spun on her heel, disappearing into the shadows with the knowledge that this, unfortunately, was just the beginning. If she wanted a chance to stop Sidious and his plan, sacrifices needed to be made. Shoving Pintu's head into a bag, Ahsoka drew up her hood as she slipped into the alley silently. She reached her ship without incident, breathing a sigh of relief as she tossed the bag out of sight. If she didn't see it, Ahsoka was sure it wouldn't affect her. Out of sight, out of mind. For the most part, she was correct. Any guilt she felt faded quickly as she told herself that it was necessary. That she had saved those people that Pintu was oppressing. Landing on Mandalore, Ahsoka entered the royal palace to find Maul lounging on his throne, completely at ease. Striding up to him, she threw the bag containing her victim's head at his feet, saying nothing as a cruel smile spread across the Zabrak's face.
Is it done?
See for yourself.
Maul raised an eyebrow, but obliged. He stepped lightly toward her gift, chuckling darkly at the sight that greeted him within the bag.
Well done. Follow me. Your training has now begun.
The two walked side by side, a sinister partnership having been formed. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, the Jedi Council discussed the recent events involving the massacre on Dathomir and Darth Maul's disappearance.
We've been unable to locate Maul these last few weeks, though we do know that Olmec is still operating as the puppet leader of the Shadow Collective.
Well, he has to be hiding somewhere.
Find him, we will. Patient we must be.
There has been some new intelligence regarding his activities on Mandalore, however.
Mandalore?
There has been strange behavior from some members of the Death Watch occupation. It seems that much of the Shadow Collective is regrouping elsewhere to detract from Mandalore itself.
A conspiracy, you believe?
I understand your concern, but I do not believe the Chancellor would authorize a siege on Mandalore without due cause, especially without separatist activity on the planet.
We need to at least investigate.
I agree. Our intelligence isn't satisfactory. Maul is taking steps to conceal his intentions.
Ever more clouded, the Force is. Reliant on hearsay, we are.
It is unfortunate that we...
Rex, I'm with the Council. Is something wrong?
General Skywalker, there's been an incident on level 1313. A known criminal has been found decapitated and surrounded by the bodies of what seem to be the enforcers. They were killed with lightsabers.
I'll be there soon. Don't allow the scene to be contaminated any further.
Yes, sir.
I have a bad feeling about this.